nice to see everybody here. Jim, nice to meet you, and thank you for your speech as well. Something that David and I have often discussed on my radio program is the Swiss model of democracy. I mean, democracy is a varied recipe. Around the world it has its different ingredients. It all bakes basically a similar cake. But each region has its own unique flavour and its own unique style and recipe. And Australia has a very good system, but I don't think we have the best. Well, the Swiss would say they have direct democracy. They have citizen-initiated referenda. Here, the political class, and Jim, you'll forgive me for saying this, but I think generally the political class are afraid of divulging power back to the people. The general knowledge and the intelligence of the Australian public resides in rooms like this. It resides out on Macquarie Street beyond this building. It resides in the neighbourhoods of the suburbs of these cities and towns right around the country. And if we could tap that general knowledge better, then we would have better policies. Yet generally, people would surprise you with the intelligence of their commentary and the breadth of their education. And you think about the issues that David mentioned earlier, some of those pivotal issues around water, energy, defence, education. If you look at those broadly, the Australian public's point of view is quite different to that of the apparatchiks in Canberra, elected or not. I think generally if the Australian public's point of view was enacted in policy rather than that which is put together by a political party, we'd be ahead of where we are today. If the Australian public's point of view were enacted in policy, we would have a cut to immigration, there's no doubt about it. It's not an anti-migrant sentiment, it's simply a mathematical equation. And cities like Sydney, with state budgets delivered today as they are, would be more livable as a result. Now, we all know why we have immigration levels the way we do, because in Canberra it drives GDP numbers, which is basically a false indication of economic strength, because on a per capita basis we've been in recession for 3 quarters. On the state level, well, Dominic Perrottet will tell you, because he's handed down his budget today, that without significant immigration growth you have far less stamp duty, and therefore it's harder for him to pay for schools and hospitals and everything else. But of course, if you didn't have so much immigration, well, you wouldn't need all the extra schools and hospital beds and motorways and everything else. And so it does seem to be a bit of catching your tail syndrome. So there is a disconnect, and perhaps it is because of that disconnect that the political class are a little afraid to just take their hand off the lever of power and divest a little more influence back in you, the people. I think if we had more direct democracy, people like Jim Molan would still be in the parliament. One thing that we lack in Australia, which perhaps they don't lack in the American system, is people with expertise in certain areas running those portfolios. I mean, you look across the spectrum, how many education ministers have ever been a teacher, let alone worked in a university or been a tutor? Most of them are lawyers. Nothing against lawyers, but you know, if you want an Attorney General, you go and find a lawyer. If you want an education minister, you should find an ex-teacher, preferable. At least someone who's worked with the unions, worked with the industries, knows how it works. If you want someone in defence, you should find an ex-soldier, not someone who's been a pen pusher all their life. You know, and the closest they've got to military is sort of some Warcraft game on the internet. So, you know, again, if we had more direct democracy, the public would insist on these sort of things, and the agenda could be changed. Because in Switzerland, as you probably are aware, and David, I know, has spoken about this at many ACM conferences over the years, the public initiate a referendum that gets a certain amount, I think it's 150,000 votes or something like that. It's put to the Parliament. The Parliament, by legislation, are forced to debate it, forced to discuss it, and forced to implement it if the vote is in the affirmative. I'll leave you with this thought. Imagine what difference that would make in our system. The different infrastructure we would have, the different way we would fund it. For example, I don't think Transurban would run every toll road that's in this city, for example, built usually by your money. So we could have a stronger democracy. It's simply a matter of convincing the politicians that their popularity depends on them divesting some power back to you. How you do that, that's up to you, but thank you for your time.